Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. Welcome to 2023. And it is 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means it is time for Women and Business. This is episode 101. So if you saw a couple weeks ago, episode 100, you will notice I am without my tiara and opera gloves today. That felt a little much for just a regular show. But I appreciate everybody who watched that show and congratulated me on hitting 100 episodes. It was very exciting for me, and I'm so pleased that people are interested in this show. But as with all good things, we must move on, and that is what we are doing today. And I figured, since it is the start of a new year and a lot of people are making resolutions or making changes or trying to form new habits, it was a good time to talk about how to form a habit. And I will say this, I am pretty much an expert on this subject because I was really, really good at forming a lot of bad habits for a long time, and I had to learn how to form good ones. And so I did a lot of reading on this subject. I did a lot of studying on this subject because I was like the queen of the bad habits for a really long time. I ate poorly. I didn't exercise. I slept badly. You name a bad habit outside of perhaps alcohol or drugs, and I probably had it at one point. And I had to learn how to form better habits. And part of that, I will have to say, even though that's really not part of what I'm going to talk about today, because I'm talking more about the mechanics of forming better habits, but part of learning to form better habits was just learning to like myself more. When I liked myself more, I wanted to treat myself better, and that led to better habits. Go figure. Shocking, I know, but there you go. And I wanted to say hello to everyone that's here today. Cindy says, good afternoon. Lisa says, Happy New Year. Lisa, who is sometimes listed as Facebook user, you're listed as Lisa today. Yay. And Lisa also makes a really good point here. I am the worst for bad habits, especially when dealing with a lot of stress. Oh God, me too. That's when, if there's ever a time when I'm going to backslide on something like eating or exercising or sleeping, it's when I'm stressed about stuff. And so that is, and I have a Facebook user here saying hi from Mississippi. Sorry, I can't see who you are, Facebook user. If you go to StreamYard www.streamyard.com/Facebook, you can give them permission to tell me who you are. Jerry Lee makes a really good point here. If this will do what I want it to do, I need to set more boundaries. Oh, a lot of us need that. And that's a good habit to get into. Definitely. And it's reminding me to start a video that I've already started. That's fun. Thank you for that. All right. So now that you're all here, and thank you for being here, I appreciate it very much. I want to talk about how to form good habits because that is the topic of this talk. And the first thing that we have to start with is, what is a habit? Because people get confused. They think routines are habits, and they're not. Routines are something that you intentionally set up to accomplish some sort of goal. Like a lot of people have a morning routine. When I used to work in an office outside my house, my morning routine was get up, take a shower, get dressed, go downstairs, have breakfast, and hopefully get a little time to read or meditate or contemplate, put my makeup on, go to the car, leave, go to work. And I had it timed out so I could sleep as long as possible and still get all the stuff in. Now that I work at home, my routine is more get up, I do my reading, I do my journaling, and then I get into my day. And it's a little simpler, but it's still intentional. There's still a purpose to it. A habit is something that you just do I don't really want to say automatically, but it really becomes that. It's something that's so ingrained in your lifestyle that you don't really think about it. One example of a habit that maybe isn't a good one is smoking. When a lot more people were smoking, that was just a habit. You woke up and you lit a cigarette. You took a break at 10:30 and you lit a cigarette. You went to lunch and you lit a cigarette. That was just kind of, you didn't really even think about it. It was just something you did. And or a bad habit could be every time that you get stressed or mad or sad, you eat something to excess. You make a big bowl of pasta, or you have a huge piece of cake, or whatever it is. And that's a whole separate subject of, eating your feelings and all that kind of stuff. But that can also be a habit that can have negative consequences for you too. So a habit is basically something that you're doing as part of the pattern of your life. You don't really think about doing it necessarily. You aren't really planning to do it. It's just something that's become ingrained in the way that you react to certain stimuli. And that means a lot, because if you're not thinking about it, if it's just like, oh, this is something that I do all the time, then you aren't thinking about whether it's good for you or bad for you. You aren't thinking about, well, whether you should be doing it. You aren't thinking about if there's a better way to do things. So this is something that we need to be aware of, is habits are things that can benefit you and can be really detrimental to you. And sometimes we form habits because we need to cope with certain stimuli. And the only way that we can do that is by having this habit. I mean, when I was younger and I didn't have the outlets or the confidence or the abilities that I have now, I coped with a lot of things by eating. I'm not going to lie. And my habit when something upset me was, where's the chocolate cake, or where's the bag of Doritos, or where's this entire pizza I can eat? Or, how can I make like 15 pieces of toast or something? And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I mean, that was my habit when those things happened. So I had to learn new habits. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is what the new habits are. And yes, Jerry Lee has it right on the money. Mindless action. Exactly. She just gave you a two-word definition of a habit that I just spent like the last 5 minutes explaining. I love this. And the next thing we need to understand is what a habit is, or what causes a habit to work for you. And that is something called the habit loop. And this was a very interesting description that I found when I was doing some research. And I really liked it because it kind of explains why habits can be so hard to get rid of and why they can be so pervasive in our lives. And the habit loop is basically something triggers you or cues you to take a particular action. And then you have this craving, which is, I want this certain comfort, or I want this certain feeling, or I want this certain thing to happen as a result of whatever my trigger was or whatever the cue was. So I'm sad. I want to feel better. So what's my response to wanting to feel better? I'll eat a piece of chocolate cake, and then I eat the cake. Now, I'm not saying that's a right response. A better response might be, I want to be more healthy. Okay, so I'm feeling overweight. My craving is to be more healthy. My response is to do 45 minutes of exercise, and my reward is I lose some weight. So the habit loop is basically something triggers a need. The need is your craving. Your response is how you meet that craving, and your reward is hopefully feeling better. Now, the problem with this is that you can pick detrimental ways as your response. So I'm really sad. I want to feel better. I'm going to cut myself, and the reward is I feel better. That's an extreme example, but it's the theory behind it is sound. So basically, what this is telling you is habits are basically ways that we deal with needs that we have. And if we can't deal with these needs in a positive way, we may deal with them in a negative way. And that's not fun. That's not good for us, but it's something that we often choose to do. So, one of the ways to deconstruct a habit is to look at the habit loop. Look at, okay, when I was more overweight, I'm still overweight, but when I was more overweight, my cue for overeating was I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm stressed, whatever it was. My craving was I don't want to feel that sensation. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel mad. I didn't have a way to express it positively. I couldn't go to someone and say, I couldn't go to the people who were causing me to feel sad or mad or whatever and say, you're making me feel sad or mad. So, but I didn't want to have the feeling. So my response to that was, I'm going to eat a ton of something. And the reward for that was, okay, now I don't feel the feeling. Now, granted, the feeling was buried under 3 tons of pasta or whatever it was, but the reward was still, I'm not feeling it. I don't feel the negative emotions that I was feeling previously. I'm not recommending that. So let's deconstruct a good habit, one that I have now, let's say, since I'm the one talking here. Okay, Q. I had heart issues. I was hospitalized several times. I had pneumonia a couple of times. I was very unhealthy. I was in congestive heart failure for 4 months. Not fun. Don't recommend it. So my cue was I'm seriously unhealthy. My craving is I never, ever, ever want to feel this way again. I got to tell you, I slept upright for 3 months when I was in congestive heart failure because I couldn't breathe. Not good. So my craving was I don't want to feel like this ever again. My response was, okay, I need to find a way that I can lose weight and that I can exercise consistently. So my response was I found a site. My option happened to be an online site called Daily Burn that has a variety of programs. And I have consistently for the last 4 years exercised almost every day. And my reward was I'm much healthier. I've lost a bunch of weight. I breathe better. My heart is happier. Everybody's good. Now, that's a positive habit, but it's the same steps. So if you're trying to figure out how to get rid of a habit that you don't want to have, look at what's causing you to do whatever you're doing. If you're trying to form a habit that you'd like to keep, a good habit, so to speak, then look at what you think would trigger that habit, why you want to have that habit, how you can respond to the reason why you want to have that habit, and what you're going to get at the end of it. And if you can deconstruct the habit in that way, then it's a lot more likely that you'll stick with things because I'm sure all of you know this. One of the problems that people often have, especially when trying to form a good new habit, is that it either seems overwhelming or they lose interest along the way or something derails them for a little bit and they kind of just go, well, that's not worth it anyway. And then they're right back where they were before. Habits are pernicious little things. They stick. And sometimes it's hard to change them, particularly when you're still getting some gratification from the habit, even if you know it's not good for you. It's how humans work, unfortunately. I wish sometimes that it weren't, but it is. So that's what you need to really take a look at, especially if you're trying to deconstruct a habit or if you're trying to get rid of a habit that you know is not good for you. What is cueing this habit? What craving is it satisfying? How do you respond to that craving? And what's the reward that you get? And if you can figure that out, sometimes you can deconstruct the habit or direct it in a new direction. And sometimes you just have to go, this does not work for me anymore. I can't do this anymore. In my case, with the eating my feelings, so to speak, I basically had to learn to just not do that. And I'm not going to lie, there are still times when, yeah, I'm going, you know what? I want 5 tons of French fries, and that's how I'm dealing with whatever the situation in front of me is. I do it a lot less than I used to. I make better choices now. And that's part of forming good habits too, is you have the choice, the habits that you have. When you learn not to be too like woo about this, but when you learn to like yourself better, you'll choose better habits. That's honestly true. And sometimes there's a lot of work that has to go into getting to the place where you like yourself better, but there's nothing wrong with that. One thing that I want you, if you take nothing else away from this, the one thing that I want you to remember is that we are all works in progress. We all work from where we are at the moment. And if you've experienced trauma, if you've experienced damage, if you're going through stressful times, whatever it is, sometimes you're not going to live up to your highest version of yourself, and that's okay. We're not, none of us are perfect. I wish I was. I wish I could say I was. I'm not. And I'm sorry to tell you, the rest of you are not either. And I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, Facebook user, but if you want to let me know, that would be good. But anxiety eating is killing me. Yeah. And anxiety eating, again, it's a habit. It's something that you do because you either didn't have another way to deal with your anxiety, you couldn't talk to or fix whatever was causing the anxiety, and food is there. And food can fool you sometimes because you start to think that, oh, I'm feeling better. And you don't realize that you're really not feeling better. You've just sated yourself to the point that you can't really feel anything. And contrary to what some people might tell you, not feeling anything is not a good thing. Just saying. So, the next thing I want to talk about, make small adjustments. And I have to say, this was an absolute game changer for me. And I posted on the Women in Business Facebook page a link to a book called Mini Habits by an author called Stephen Geis. And I found that book and it changed my whole concept of habits and how to adjust my habits. And the reason for that is exactly as the book title says. He talks about making small incremental changes instead of wholesale changes. So instead of saying, I'm going to exercise 30 minutes every day, you say, I'm going to get out of my chair and exercise for 5 minutes, or I'm going to do 10 push-ups. I'm going to do 3 jumping jacks, whatever it is. And you do that until that becomes a habit, and then you start enlarging it. So instead of so if you're dealing with, let's say, anxiety eating, like the poster mentioned earlier, maybe you say, okay, when I feel anxious, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths before I eat anything. Or if I'm feeling anxious, I'm going to write in my journal, or I'm going to listen to 5 minutes of music before I eat anything, or whatever it is. And whatever you find soothing. But the idea is that you start with a small change, a change that seems almost like it's nothing. And then you gradually build on the small change to make a bigger change. And eventually you change the habit. And why this works, I think, is a couple of reasons. One, it's a small stakes thing. A lot of us in our heads, we tend to be all or nothing. It's like, I'm going to exercise 30 minutes every day when I've never exercised ever in my life and when I hate exercise. And you're really setting yourself up for failure almost, because you're setting yourself up with something that you really don't want to do. Maybe you're not familiar with. It seems like a really long time. And you just end up going, oh, I'm too tired. Or, well, I didn't exercise yesterday, so I've ruined the whole week, so I'm just not going to do it today. And before you know it, you're back into your old patterns. But if you say, I'm going to do 10 jumping jacks, I'm going to walk in place for 5 minutes, I'm going to go outside and walk up and down my driveway for 5 minutes, that's doable. That's not a huge commitment of time or effort or anything. But what the theory is, and I think the other reason that this idea works, is that once you start doing something and you get used to doing it and you start maybe seeing some small benefits from doing it, then you want to continue. So you keep building on it so you can get bigger benefits and more gratification. Humans are all about gratification. We like feeling good. We like feeling like we've accomplished things. We like feeling like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And these little rewards, think back to the habit cycle that we were talking about earlier. These are your rewards. If I walk up and down the driveway for 5 minutes, maybe I feel less stressed. Maybe I lose a little bit of weight. Maybe I get the benefit of being outside in the sunshine and the fresh air. I mean, not that we have sunshine here, but some places must. And all these things work together. And as you build on the small habits that you started, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually you're where you want to be. And I highly recommend this book. Like I said, there is a link to it on the Women in Business Facebook page. Go check it out. It really did help me. It really helped change my thinking, because I will fully admit I'm an all or nothing kind of girl. I'm like, I will commit. I will commit to everything. I'll commit my body, my brain, my soul, my everything. And then when things would not work necessarily, or when I'd have an off day, then I think, well, I ruined everything. So, screw it. I'm not going to do this anymore. So making small adjustments and doing things that were within my grasp and were low stakes. If I didn't walk for 5 minutes, I hadn't ruined everything. And 5 minutes was more doable than half an hour sometimes. So it's really about starting somewhere, doing something, and getting a little bit of reward and a little bit of gratification. And hopefully you like that enough that you do a little bit more. So say if you smoke and you decide you don't want to smoke, maybe your first little mini habit is, okay, I used to smoke 14 cigarettes a day. I don't know how many cigarettes people smoke. I've never smoked, but I used to smoke 14 cigarettes a day. I'm going to try to only smoke 12. And then you start there, and then gradually you take it down. What a lot of people do is they go, okay, starting January 1st, I'm not going to smoke anymore. And then they go through this whole withdrawal period. And I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I think you should do it whatever way works for you. But I'm just saying, for some things, starting small and building on that start can really help you. And I have another Facebook user here, and I think I know who this is. I'm betting this is Carolyn, but she says, I have made a date now for every Monday at 10 a.m. I get on my bike and call my art friend, and we ride for 45 minutes. Really helps. And there you go. And Nikki is here, and she says, hello, sunshine. And Nikki says, I use the traffic light method, which I would love to teach. You should do that, Nikki. You should teach that, definitely. Next thing. Identify triggers and obstacles. And this is what causes you to have a bad habit, or what triggers a bad habit for you. And what's in your way of changing that habit? And sometimes, honestly, what's in the way of changing that habit is you. And Lisa says, just want to throw this in here. I love that bike date idea. That is nice. And Nikki, FYI, if you want to come on this show and teach the traffic light method, we can talk about that. I'm just saying that. But I think one of the ways to change a habit is to figure out why you have that habit in the first place, which goes back to that habit cycle that I was talking about earlier. Figure out what's triggering these habits. Figure out what you're getting out of these habits. Figure out why you're doing it. We don't have habits because they don't benefit us in some way. It might be not the best benefit, or the side effects of the habit might not be the best, but we're getting something out of it. When I was way overeating, what I was getting out of it was I didn't have to feel these negative feelings. So even though the side effect of the habit was not good, the effect on my emotions was what I needed, which is getting rid of these negative emotions that were making me feel bad, or suppressing them, I guess, is maybe more to the point. And figure out, why are you overeating, or why do you not exercise, or why are you not sleeping, or why do you bite your nails, or why do you overspend, or whatever it is that's happening that you want to change. What's making that happen? And if you're consistently doing it, what are the circumstances that cause this to happen? Is it because you're consistently fighting with the same person? Is it because somebody's making you feel bad? Is it because of memories? Is it because of, I don't know, there's a million different reasons why you might be doing something, but identifying why a habit is occurring, a negative habit is occurring, is one of the ways to stop that habit. So it's really something to spend some time looking at. And I know for a lot of people, they only look at their negative habits to kind of beat themselves up about it, to kind of say, this is wrong, and this is not what I want to do, and how come I'm so weak, and how come I can't change this? And there's no use in any of that. We are what we are, and we're coping as best we can in the space we're in. When we like ourselves better, when we learned new ways to cope, or new methods of dealing with things, then we'll change what we're doing. But figuring out your triggers is one way to start towards change. If you figure out what's making you do a particular thing, you can either change the circumstances, or if your habit is, every time I go to the bar, I get way drunk and go home with some person. Okay, well, the trigger is right there. Every time I go to the bar, maybe you need to stop going to the bar. And that is one thing that I should say. Sometimes changing a habit might mean giving up something you really enjoy, or doing something you really don't enjoy. I will say, when it comes to me and exercise, I still don't love it. I like it more than I did, but I still don't jump up every morning and go, yay, I get to exercise today. I just know that if I do, I'll feel better about myself. I'll sleep better. I'll have better handles on my anxiety and my depression, and it's good for me. But I don't love it. I don't wake up every morning and go, yay, I want to do burpees today, because I don't ever want to do burpees. But I understand that it's beneficial to me, and the reward that I get from doing it is better than the possibility of getting sick again, is honestly. And yeah, I am well aware that exercising every day is not going to preclude me potentially getting sick. There are things that can happen, but it's one thing I can do to control something that's pretty much uncontrollable, so I'll take it. And the other half of starting a new habit is identifying the obstacles in your way. Sadly, the obstacles in your way sometimes can be the people in your life. They may not want you to change. They may like whatever benefit they're getting out of the habits that you have now. They may feel uncomfortable that you're changing and they're not. So that's something that you need to look at. And honestly, sometimes people can get in your way with the most loving of intentions, but they're still in your way. So you need to understand that sometimes you're going to have maybe uncomfortable conversations with people in your life. You can put obstacles in front of yourself. Sometimes the person in your life you need to have the uncomfortable conversation with is you. Because, I mean, I will put my hand up to this. I have been a major person that has put obstacles in the way of forming new good habits. I sabotaged myself when it came to exercise for years before I finally got clear on it's either this or you're probably going to die. And I was like, oh, well, that's, if those are the choices, then exercise is the lesser of the two evils. And yeah, that's a little exaggerated, but, congestive heart failure is not something to joke about. Obstacles could be sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time. Sometimes you're going to have to give up something that you really, really love because it's not good for you or it's triggering a behavior that isn't good for you. And that's no fun either. If you have to stop doing something because it triggers a negative habit, that's kind of sad sometimes, but it also means that you're choosing to do things that are good for you, and that is important. So I guess it kind of depends how you want to look at it. I choose to look at it now that I like myself enough that I want to do things that are beneficial for me. And that is a huge change in my life, honestly. There was a long time when I would do anything but what was beneficial for me because I was told that I didn't deserve anything better. And learning to like myself enough to say, you know what, I need to take care of me because I'm a good person and I deserve to be healthy and happy. And I'm not going to lie, it takes work to get there. It's not something that you wake up one morning and go, you know what, that whole way that I was living my life and treating myself was just awful. And I'm way better than that. It'd be nice if it worked that way, but it doesn't. So identifying triggers and obstacles can be really, really helpful if you're trying to start a new habit because it helps you see why you're doing what you're doing and what might be in the way of changing that pattern. So very, very helpful. Another thing, right in line with the mini habit sort of thing a little bit, celebrate your small wins. People always get so focused on the huge goal at the end. Like, I want to lose 100 pounds, or I'm going to stop smoking, or I'm going to journal every day, or I'm going to read 49 books this year, or whatever it is. We get so focused on the big goal at the end, the brass ring, so to speak, that we don't celebrate the stuff that's on the way. I honestly celebrate a little bit every day when I get up and actually exercise. When I actually do something. I like seeing the counter on the site that I use go up and say, you exercised today. I like seeing the days pile up and they have a little thing that says, you've done this many workouts, you've exercised this many hours, whatever it is. I like seeing that. I like seeing that incremental change because it tells me that, okay, I've actually changed. I've actually created a new habit. So celebrate it. Celebrate when you lose a pound. Celebrate when you make a different choice rather than eating when you're feeling anxiety or you're feeling sad. Or celebrate 3 days not smoking or not drinking or whatever the habit is that you want to change. Celebrate when you choose to go to a movie instead of go to a bar if that's the habit you're trying to change. We tend to focus a lot on the big goals, and I think that's a culture thing that we tend to think that the steps don't matter as much as achieving the big thing at the end. Here's the thing though, if you don't celebrate the little steps along the way, it's that much harder to get to the end because you end up feeling like, oh, this is a slog. And honestly, a lot of us, I know I do, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, also tend to be really hard on ourselves. I know I'm really hard on myself. I'm like, why didn't you do that? And how come you weren't better at that? And how come you didn't do, whatever today? And I beat myself up a lot of the time, and it's counterproductive. So I'm trying to learn to say, hey, you caught yourself when you were talking negatively to yourself and you changed it to a positive comment. That's really good. Or, yay, you exercised today. Or, yay, at lunch you chose to have veggies and dip rather than a piece of pizza. Not that I've had a piece of pizza in forever, but you know what I'm saying. It's celebrating the small choices. And it sounds really kind of like, oh, yay. It sounds a little bit like applauding for the baby the first time that they take a pee in the potty. But it's a theory that works, and there's a reason why we applaud for that baby, because we're rewarding behavior we want the baby to have. We're teaching them a habit, basically. So teach yourself a habit. Treat yourself like that little kid and say, yay, you made a good choice. You did something that was good for you, and that's positive. And Cindy makes a good point here. That is one thing that is really nice in the world we live in now. You can YouTube just about anything, diets, exercise programs, great groups, and she's totally true. She's totally right about that. And I'm sure you can also find sites or apps that will help you with habit forming too. Honestly, I didn't look those up because I don't necessarily respond well to those kind of things. I tend to get obsessive. But if those can work for you and not cause you to get obsessive, go for it. The next thing, when you're creating a habit, and oh, I got my Two Regular Guys tumbler if you saw my post. Fits my hand much better, by the way, if Aaron happens to see this ever. Get clarity on why you are creating new habits. That means, why is the habit causing you why is your current habit or habits causing you problems? What do you want to change? What are you hoping to get out of the new habits that you want to form? How will they make your life better? How will getting rid of habits that are maybe having negative consequences make your life better? As Aaron often says, know your why. I think Eric says it too. I don't know. But know your why. Why are you doing this? What does it bring to your life, or how do you feel like these changes will impact your life in a positive way? And I like this from Michelle. My word for 2023 is change, which is including small changes, health, business, pray, and more. And I think change is a good word, honestly. I think we're afraid of change a lot, and I don't think we should be, because that's part of getting clarity too. Why do you want to change? What will this change bring to your life? How is it going to make things better? How is it going to impact your life in a positive way? And you really have to spend some time thinking about that. And I think a lot of people maybe choose to form certain habits because they're told that those habits are good for them. And honestly, I think those are the habits that we fail at forming the most. I didn't really start exercising and getting fit until I got clarity on why I wanted to do it. And trust me, I had been told for decades that I needed to exercise, that I needed to lose weight, that I needed to do all that stuff. And I'd been put on diets, and I'd been, I'd done all these fad things, and I tried all these programs, and I was so sick and tired of the whole thing. And it never, ever worked. And then I got clarity on what it could mean if I didn't do it. And I got clarity on why it would be good if I did. And I got clarity for me. Now, my clarity may not be your clarity. You have to figure out for yourself why this habit matters to you. And it can't be because your mom told you or because your doctor said so, or I mean, it can, but honestly, the habits I think that stick the most are the ones where you've gotten clarity for yourself on why this matters to you, why you think this is a habit that you need to have for you. And that's something that's hard to do sometimes because there are a lot of people in this world, some related to us, some doctors or other experts. And certainly, as Cindy pointed out, there are YouTube experts and people on the internet and articles you can read and all sorts of stuff you can see that'll tell you why you should or shouldn't have a particular habit, why you should form this new habit, what this all means. And you can get inundated in this slew of information, and a lot of it may not be relevant to you. And if it's not, then choose to ignore it. Get clarity on why these habits matter for you, why this habit is important for you, because that's what's going to keep you going on the days when you don't really want to do whatever the new habit is. When you're tired or you're sad or you're achy or whatever it is, and you're just like, you know what, I don't want to exercise today. I don't want to write in my journal. I don't want to have to sit with this sadness and listen to music instead of eating a piece of cake. I don't want to do it. Get clarity on why it's better for you if you do. I got to say this with the eating habit, eating your feelings or eating your anxieties. It's more uncomfortable to deal with the emotions or the anxiety, but it's so much healthier because you can actually deal with it. I have, honestly, every bit of blubber on my body is some stuffed emotion. And it probably would have killed me before too much longer, honestly, because I had so much anger and hurt and sad and everything else stuffed in my body. And once I realized that, okay, I need to talk about this stuff, and okay, some of it I can't talk to the people who caused it because that's just not an option, but I can write about it. I can talk about it here. I can do exercises to deal with it. I can release it. I can let it go. And that's become one of my habits too, honestly, is sitting down every once in a while and saying, okay, what do I need to let go of? What am I holding on to? What am I using to beat myself up with that I shouldn't be? And it helps. It really does. And I'm not going to lie. It's not easy to do all of this. It's not easy and it's not always comfortable. And sometimes you're going to need a professional to help you, and there is nothing wrong with that. But get clarity on what you want at the end of all this. Because I got to say, not holding on to stuff is, for me, a huge benefit. And not suppressing my feelings is a huge benefit. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who could probably use that benefit. So get clarity on why you're doing what you're doing. Whatever habit you want to form, why do you want to form it? What benefit are you going to get from it? And the next thing, and this is tailor-made for me, focus on one habit at a time. Because a lot of people, particularly this time of year, are like, I'm going to clean my house every week, and I'm going to exercise every day, and I'm going to cook nutritious meals every day, and I'm going to journal every day, and I'm going to, do whatever it is, whatever but they want to change everything all at once. And that's a recipe for failure. That's a recipe for disaster, honestly, because really what you're doing is you're overloading yourself and you're trying to make so many changes at once that you're just going to short circuit your system. It's too much. And they say now there's a wide range. It's like between 15 and 285 days to form a new habit. The average is 66 days. So the average person is going to take 66 days of consistently doing something before it becomes a habit. So 66 days is 2 months and a bit, give or take. So for 2 months, do one habit. For 2 months and a bit, change one thing, do one new habit, get it ingrained. And then once that's ingrained, change something else. You can have a list of things you want to change, but don't try to change them all at once because you're setting yourself up for target confusion and disaster. And honestly, it's a shock to your system. Remember, the habits you have, even if you don't like them, are producing some benefit for you. So you need to figure out why you have the habits. And if you change everything at once, then you're relieving your body and your mind and your emotions of all the coping mechanisms that you've had. And that's a lot to ask of yourself. So focus on one thing, and it could be the thing that you think is causing you the most problem, or the thing that is doing the most damage, or whatever it is that you want to, whichever habit you want to pick. But pick one and then just deal with that. And then once that new habit is cemented and the old habit is changed, pick another thing and start again. And what's nice about this is that as time goes on, you'll get a little more used to forming new habits, and you'll figure out what the obstacles are that you're put in your way when you form a new habit. You'll figure out what your triggers are that might be causing you to not cement a new habit, and you'll learn how to avoid those things. But if you try to change everything at once, you're just going to blow your system up. And it could be your support system, it could be your physical system, it could be your mental and emotional system, it could be all of them. And that's just nuts. That's just completely nuts. So don't do it. And I will tell you, I know this one from experience because I used to be one of those people that January 1st, I'm going to change everything. And what ended up happening 99% of the time was that I changed nothing, because I ended up trying to change so many things at once. And I, just like I told you, I short-circuited my systems. I couldn't cope, I couldn't deal, and I just lost it. So one of the reasons that I think the new habits that I have formed have stuck is because I really just concentrated on one thing at a time. When I had the heart issues and I was hospitalized and all that, when I came home, the one thing I thought was, okay, I'm going to start working on exercise. And it took me a while. I did it a few times and then stopped. And I did it a few more times and then stopped. And then I finally found the right thought process and the right platform for me to use. And it's been going on 4 years now, and I have consistently made exercise a habit. I've dropped about 70 pounds, but it took me a while to get there. But that was the habit. And now the next habit I took on was eating better. And I pretty much got that one down now. So now I'm working on getting rid of negative self-talk, because that's a huge problem for me. So that's the habit I'm trying to break now. And there are benefits to everything. I mean, I feel better when I eat better. I feel better when I exercise. Do I love either of those things? Not always. Do I sometimes just want to go screw it and get a pizza and cheesy bread? Oh God, yes. But that's not going to be beneficial for me. So I don't do it. I've broken that habit. And that's largely because I took one habit and focused on it. So don't try to change everything at once, because it just isn't going to work. Also, if you are making a change in habits, have accountability. Tell people about it. Ask your friends to, ask about your progress. Now, for some people, this can be, and I will put up my hand to this, I am one of those, where having other people involved can be a little uncomfortable, particularly if you have had experiences in the past where you were monitored and censured for not meeting a particular goal that you may not have chosen. So you may be antagonistic towards accountability. Accountability doesn't necessarily have to be other people. It can be like the exercise platform that I use. It shows me every day when I exercise. It keeps totals of how often I've done it. And that for me is like, okay, I have progress. And after a while, you start thinking, oh, I want to keep this going. I've made some progress. That's the accountability I use there. I can see when I don't do it. Accountability for eating has mostly been medical labs. When I eat properly, my labs are good. When I don't eat properly, they're not. I don't, because food and eating was where I was monitored in the past. I know for me, having a person involved in that would be really triggering and probably would negate any benefit of accountability there. So I think this is also a place where you need to figure out where your triggers are and you need to figure out where the obstacles are. But accountability is an important, even if you write it down somewhere, even if you just tell your best friend, it's figuring out ways to keep yourself accountable that will work for you. And it doesn't have to be posting it on your Facebook page. It doesn't have to be asking other humans to monitor you, so to speak, if that's a triggering event for you. But I think there should be some kind of accountability. There should be some way to see your progress. There should be some way to know if you're not doing what you said you were going to do. And honestly, one of the ways to not cement new habits is to have no accountability. And I used to be a big proponent of this. I'm not going to tell anybody because if I don't do it, then they'll never know and we're fine. Well, we weren't fine because I wasn't changing the habits that I wanted to change. But in my mind, I was, like I said, because I had had prior bad experiences, I was like, if nobody knows, then they can't censure me if I don't do it. So accountability. And then the last thing, and this is something, like I said, I'm working on negative self-talk right now. I'm working on this for myself too, which is practice compassion. Realize that you're not always going to do what you say you're going to do. Realize that one stumble doesn't mean you're worthless. Realize that changing a habit is a process that takes time, and be kind to yourself while you're going through that process. It's really easy, especially if you've been abused in the past, or if if your self-esteem is not that high or whatever, to say, I'm worthless, I can't do anything, I never live up to what I say I'm going to do, all that kind of stuff. That's all. Don't do that to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself. Say nice things to yourself. Applaud, like I was saying earlier, applaud your small wins. Everything you do that gets you a little closer to your goal is a win. A little closer to changing your habit, which I guess is your goal, is a win. So be compassionate. I think we could all be more compassionate about ourselves. We could all be more compassionate about the way we talk to ourselves and the way we treat ourselves. And we're not, sadly, often. So that's something to look at. And that is all I have for today. I hope you all got something out of this. I know I did. Actually, doing the research made me think of some things that I hadn't thought of in a while. So that was really good. And I appreciate you all being here. Welcome to 2023. I'm working on getting some guests booked. If you have a suggestion for a guest, if you have a suggestion for a topic that you'd like us to discuss, you can always go to the Women in Business Facebook page and leave me a comment or a message and let me know. I really hope that I will see you all again next week. Thank you all for being here today. And thank you for listening to this discussion.